Welcome to Break Free from Corporate, the only podcast dedicated to bringing you business success secrets from leading entrepreneurs with one thing in common. They left the corporate world, became their own boss, and are now living incredible lives. To access previous and all future episodes, visit breakfreefromcorporate.com and subscribe today.
Well, hello, everyone. This is Gavin Sequeira here, and welcome to Break Free from Corporate, and welcome to another exciting episode on our podcast. Today, I have a special guest. Her name is Caitlin Strempel. I hope I pronounced it correctly. Caitlin, are you there with us?
Yes, you did pronounce it.
Oh, good. Okay, now Caitlin comes to us from Phoenix, Arizona in the US, which is exciting. I've been there. It's an amazing place. We're really happy to have Caitlin with us today because Caitlin is someone who has done what we've all done. She's worked in the corporate world. She's left. She has started her own business, something she was passionate about. It's a digital marketing agency called Rising Ranks. And she is right now at the top of her game. She's a keynote speaker as well. She is an SEO expert, and she helps businesses scale to $1 million months, which is incredible. She's a digital strategist, and she has done a lot of great work in that area. She's been featured in Forbes, Entrepreneur, Inc. magazine, and a lot of other great publications. So we're really here to pick her brain, but more than that, really excited to hear her backstory and how she got started, where she came from, what she did, how she ended up to where she is today. So with all of that, Caitlin, really great to have you on the call. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be here. I can't wait to chat with you.
Awesome. So look, we only just came in touch with each other pretty recently, Caitlin, but I think it was really timing. And, you know, I love sharing stories from people all around the world on this podcast. The primary aim is to help our listeners just get inspired, get motivated. You know, when they hear of other people like yourself doing these things, they're like, hey, if Caitlin can do it, I can do it, you know?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, and if I can do it, anyone can really do it.
Yeah, exactly. Now, you know, obviously you run your own business, Caitlin, and you're doing well. How did you get to this particular point in life? Because you've been featured in Forbes and Entrepreneur magazine and Inc. and all of these different things, and it's pretty amazing. But, you know, take us back to like where you started. You know, you were working for other people, right? You had a job. Take us back to that point and what made you change.
Yeah. So I went to school for advertising and marketing. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, right out of school, I went straight into agency and corporate world. You know, I was marketing agency, working very long hours, having a really hard schedule, which I know a lot of people can probably relate to. Yeah. Especially anything in, you know, agency side, and the larger the agency, it seems that, you know, the longer hours you end up working.
Yes.
But, you know, it was one of those things where at that time I liked it. Mm-hmm. I wouldn't say I loved it, but it was good. I had a good job. I had good jobs. I was in agency / corporate side for about a decade. Mm-hmm. And I'd go to these companies, work there, have so much fun. And then like probably it was like a 2-year max that I was like, all right, I have the itch for something more. And at the time, like I didn't really know what it was. And then as my career went on, I knew I wanted to do my own thing. I wouldn't say I actually really had the courage though to go out and do it. Like I would dip my toe in, maybe freelance for a job and like, you know, go back to my safety net.
Yeah, and look, a lot of people who are listening to this can probably relate because it's not that easy to make those kind of life-changing decisions, is it?
It's not. And you know, sometimes it's easier to make the move when you're in a really bad job, you know, or you're crying every day, which at one point I was, but for the most part, I was leaving good. Like I was like, things are good. You know, this is how it's supposed to be. Like nothing's awful, you know, and I hear horror people having the worst jobs. I loved the people I worked with. Clients, not so much, I would say, for the most part. Mm-hmm. Hours, definitely not. But I just kept trucking along and bouncing around and trying to really find that fire in me. And
yeah. Sorry, I was just, you were saying a couple of things that really resonated with me because in my personal circumstance and a lot of people I talk to, it's not always that things have to be wrong before you try to make a change, or, you know, things are going bad that you have to make a change. Sometimes it's when things are good and you're in a comfort zone and, nothing around you is bad. Like work is okay. But there's something missing, perhaps.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if
Yeah.
that was sort of like, your experience.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Something was definitely missing. And I tried to fill that with new jobs and different roles. But really, how I got into entrepreneurship, I was on maternity leave. I just had our first son. And we went in for a 2-month checkup and, I didn't even have my husband come with me. I was like, okay, it's fine, go work out, whatever. And 2 hours later, doctor's like, hey, we saved you a spot at Phoenix Children's Hospital. Like, you have to go there now.
Wow.
And yeah, it's crazy. And especially as a first time parent, but any parent. So at that time, that's when we found out that our son was born with a heart defect.
Oh, wow. Sorry
Yeah.
to hear that.
Yeah, I know. And he's totally fine now. He is happy, healthy, crazy as can be for a 4-year-old boy. But we went to the hospital and we were there for a few weeks for monitoring, the actual procedure, complications. We were out and they were back in a while. And, my husband was actually, he was traveling at most of the time when we were in the hospital because he traveled at that point in time. I thankfully was on maternity leave. Mm-hmm. So I stayed there. I stayed there all night, all day. I did not breathe fresh air for weeks.
Wow.
Sunshine. So, I was in the thick of it and I was there and, I was driving to the hospital. I was there waiting for my husband and there's just so many things that I had questions about that I really, wasn't going to ask the doctor, wasn't going to call my friends, but I turned to my phone. I turned to Google. And at that point, maybe not that point in time, but a few weeks later, I realized that, wow, people have some serious questions that they can't even ask, the people closest to them.
Right.
And, there's so many searches on the internet. How do I save my marriage?
Yes.
How do I become happy again? These little things. Or even just like, hey, where's the nearest pizza shop?
Yes.
But so many people, I think there was a poll from, I think it was Nielsen, that 81% of people go fact check for themselves before anything else.
Yeah.
So that's huge. And things at that point were crazy, but it was a few weeks that we were back and we were kind of get our life together. There's a new normal. And I just kind of sat there and I was trying to reflect on everything. And that's when it really hit me was that I've been playing small because I had this fear of going out on my own and betting on myself. When in reality, that fear was really small compared to the fear that I just faced.
Yeah.
And
yeah. Good
my
one.
my background has always been in digital marketing, always been, in that realm of things. So I knew that's what I was going to do. And then I kept on coming back to that realization that so many people have these big life questions and Google's their main person they go to. And so that's why I really wanted to niche down into SEO and then digital strategy.
Right.
But yeah, looking back, it's kind of just like, why did I let myself not face that fear for 10 years, for a decade?
Well, it's really interesting because sometimes it takes time before we come to that realization. It's easy to look back now and go, why didn't I do that 10 years ago?
Yeah.
Or why didn't I do that, so much sooner? But at the time, it was like probably the biggest fear holding you back. It was like, I can't do this, or I don't, maybe I don't believe in myself as much, or I don't think I can be successful, or, what if I fail, and what will my, people around me think, and all of that kind of stuff, which now that you look back on, it's like, well, I was already an expert in this space. I had the experience. I had the know-how. I could have done this sooner.
Yeah, exactly. Hindsight is everything for
it
sure.
Is.
But I also think that everything's in divine timing. So for me, that was the push that I needed. And yeah, it just, I haven't looked back since. At that point in time, I was just like, all right, well, if anything happens to my family, I don't want to be working 12-hour days anymore. I don't want to be working the weekends. I don't want to be pulling all-nighters. Like, this is just not feasible for me.
Yeah.
And one, I want to be there for my family whenever I need to be. And two, I just, we were faced with this life and death experience. We found out the day that our son had a heart procedure was the day his heart started failing. Talk about divine timing. Yeah. And so at that point in time, I was just kind of like, there's no better thank you for your life than to go out and really do something that you have the urge to do. That's something that you truly, truly have in yourself to do.
Yeah, no, totally resonate. And it also makes you feel alive, doesn't it? It gives you a purpose. It gives you a mission. Suddenly you're looking to do something bigger and like bold and kind of make your stamp on the world and really serve other people. And once you get that in whatever form that comes about, like it really lights you up. I know it did with me. And even though, like you're saying, being in a corporate job, it could be paying really well and you're doing, everything is good until you face that life-changing moment. And in your case, it was when, you were in the hospital perhaps. And in my case, like, I remember back in 2007, during the global financial crisis, there was a lot of upheaval in just corporate, everywhere. And there were places that were restructuring and refinancing and changing, and jobs were all over the place. And I remember it was just a real time of uncertainty. So even if you had a good job, you didn't know if you were going to keep it.
And then circling back to COVID times as well, the same thing. A lot of people got laid off in these jobs that they thought were, really stable.
That's right. So, if there was ever a time to say, hey, what else could I be doing? Or is there anything else I could be doing? I mean, this is the perfect time to be asking that question. And I'm glad you did, because obviously you then went on to do some really cool things. And was that when you set up Rising Ranks, the digital agency, or was there something prior to that?
So it was, essentially the same company, but different name, a really boring name, CRS Digital Marketing, just my initials. But, I hit the ground running. So we rebranded last year, actually. So we started, and I think a lot of people fear, like, what am I going to do? I have this job anyway. Like, how am I just going to quit? And you don't have to. I didn't suddenly wake up the next day and have 20 clients. Right. I emailed everyone I knew and was like, who wants free marketing? And then I just talked about it. I think my first paying client was a guy at the gym, just from us talking about what I did.
Yeah. Which is excellent. And this is exactly one of the things I suggest to people, which is you don't have to quit your job, and if you've got a job, hold on to it for now, but try and find some spare hours in the week where you can do something, you can build some skills, build some knowledge base, test things out, try things, because what else are you doing with your spare time? If you're not experimenting, you're not trying something, how will you ever know? Right. And
and if it's truly your passion too, like those extra, whether it's an hour a day or 2 hours a week, it's going to feel amazing.
Oh, it will. It totally will. And sometimes people say, Caitlin, I'm so busy. I got kids. I got family commitments. I got all this stuff at work. I'm just so busy. I don't even have a spare hour at all. Now, I think everyone can find that spare hour or two in the week. I'm not talking about per day, in the whole week.
Yeah, I agree.
It will take some sacrifice. I guess you'll have to give up something, right?
Yeah. And for me too, it's kind of like the balancing of, all right, I'm home with my kid because I wanted this job where I could stay home, but also like we're growing. We're an actual company now.
Yeah.
So I should get like a nanny here so I'm not, driving myself crazy.
Yeah. And do you find that as you're now growing the business, you're looking at ways to do things smarter and not simply work harder? You're looking at, well, how can I get someone else to do something, or how can I outsource something, or how can I, leverage my time better? Because now I guess your time is your most precious commodity, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's kind of been the hardest part, being a type A, hard, don't want to give up control, but it was baby steps. So I was like, okay, this next client, I'm going to have a nanny come for, 2 hours a day.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to order pre-made meals once I get this client instead of they cook every day. So little things like that I just kind of, they just kind of stacked up until I felt, I had a really, I don't want to say, perfect life balance, but, more of a work-life balance. than I would
Yeah.
have.
And I bet when you first started, when you first started your agency on the side, it would have been chaotic because you would have been wearing multiple hats, right? You're doing everything.
Yeah, so I still did some 12-hour days,
Yeah.
but it was for my passion, and it literally flew by. Like I literally look up and be like, oh my gosh, I've been working on this for 12 hours.
Yeah, yeah. And it's exciting because, sometimes people say, well, gee, I'm so busy at work and when I come home, I got to do all the stuff with the kids and the family. Like I'm going to be exhausted by the time I even start. The thing, like you said the magic words. If you're working on something that is your passion or something you're passionate about or something that you could get passionate about, right? Suddenly it's not, you don't notice the time. You literally will find the time. You'll stay up that extra hour. You will wake up earlier that extra hour. You might not watch as much TV. You might, you'll find the time to put towards it because you really enjoy it. Like you can see it going somewhere. And I think if you can take the time to find that, you won't need to worry about finding time. I think it'll just take care of itself.
Yes, I know. You're getting me all fired up. I feel like I need to go work now.
Yeah. And I like the example, Caitlin, you said, initially when you first got started, no one might have known who you were, right? So you just started talking to people wherever you could at the gym and, hey, who wants free marketing, right? I mean, that's kind of how I did it as well, because it's untested, it's unproven. I mean, you believe in yourself, you back yourself, but you just want to get your name out there. You want to start doing things for other people. And so you just say, hey, want to be my guinea pig?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And that kind of came with my growing pains. And I feel like everything I did, I started to feel a little bit of pain, and then I'd be like, okay, let's do this. So, I wasn't an entrepreneur before. I didn't know that I needed to have all these things in place. But as I grew, I learned and didn't let it get too out of control.
And that's the magic thing you just said there. Like you weren't an entrepreneur before. You didn't know what was expected as an entrepreneur or a business owner. You just kind of fell into it and you learned on the job, so to speak.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's so many people I talk to, Caitlin, who are like, well, I've never done anything for myself before. I've always worked for someone else. I don't think I can do it. I'm not born to be an entrepreneur. I'm not cut out to be. So what would you say to someone who's thinking like that? They weren't the 15-year-old kid who sold lemonade out the front yard. They weren't like that. But could they do something like what you're doing? Could they get something off the ground on the side? I mean, what would you say to someone like that?
Yeah, I would say if you have the desire in you, it's that desire is there for a reason. Like that is a driving force. It's just the thought of you having something for yourself and that really exciting you, without you overthinking and then becoming afraid of it, like that. I mean, it's for you.
Yeah, definitely. What would you say was, I guess one or even more of your biggest challenges you faced when you went down this entrepreneurial path? Because like you said, you have to put in the long hours still, right? But what was one or two, or you can name as many as you like, challenges that you faced in the early days when you got started?
For me, it got to the point where I didn't get the help I needed in time. Like that was a big one. Again, going back to me wanting to do it all. And even like the things like I liked everything at that point in time. And at a certain point, you're like, okay, well, even some of the things that you like to do, you might not want to be doing them. Like you portion them out, figure out what you love to do, what your business depends on you for, and seed out the rest, get help for the rest. So there was a point in time where, I was working really long hours, working on the weekend, where it got to the point where it's like, I wasn't even seeing my family. And that was like, the driving force of everything going on. So that was kind of like after probably a few months of that, I was like, this needs to change. Like I can't handle being stuck inside this house for another Saturday while my husband and my baby go and like do fun things.
Yeah.
So that's when I started hiring out and bringing on a team. And then after a while, you start to do the same things over again for training, or you start having people who are, getting frustrated because you're the bottleneck. So that's when I started to create training videos, trying to create systems, things like that. So there's always been a pain. I feel like everything, for some reason, I just get to the pain point. I'm like, all right, that's my lesson.
Well, that's a good lesson, and that's a valuable one, because I think I read somewhere, and I can't remember who taught me this, but people are more likely to move away from pain than they are to move towards pleasure. And I don't know if you've heard that one before, but
I've heard something similar to that.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so
I totally
it's
agree.
really interesting. Like a lot of us, sit in this comfort zone where, if things ain't broken, we're not going to fix it. Right. So, but until things start to break or until we start to see the cracks on the wall or things aren't going the way, there's a pain associated with it, we start to go, well, how can I put something in place so this doesn't happen again? Which is a very normal human reaction. So we're glad to see that you went through some of this stuff, because I know definitely I did, and a lot of our listeners, I'm sure, would be, hey, me too.
Yeah, and now I've been trying to be like, okay, let's not let it get to that point. What else do I need to do? What's my next step? Trying to stay ahead of the curve these days.
Right. So that's important, trying to be ahead of the curve. So sometimes you can go through all this pain and then fix it, but you don't want to be constantly fixing challenges and problems and pain points. Like you want to be proactive and say, well, if I don't do this, here's what might happen in 6 months' time or in a year's time. And do I really want to go through that? No. So let's fix it now. And
Yeah. You're in business because you love your business, so you don't want to end up hating your business.
no, you definitely don't. And it's funny you say that, because some people do. They end up really not liking what they started, what was a passion once upon a time, because they didn't go about it the right way or the smart way, or, they just didn't put enough time into working on the business. They were just in the business all the time. They end up resenting it, which is sad.
That's very sad.
Yeah. So, okay. So we talked about, a few of the pain points that you went through and some of the challenges. Obviously, you come from a background of the digital space, and you've done some work in there. So you know that you can leverage things like technology and you can outsource and all that. There's a lot of people out there who don't know these things. How easy is it to get someone else to help you online or remotely?
It is so easy, especially with Zoom these days and all the technology, all the social platforms. It is incredibly easy to find somebody to help you. There are, Facebook groups. There are, hiring agencies online. Again, just talking to people in your network, you'll find that you get a lot of really great recommendations. Now, granted, it's like hiring for anything. Like you're going to have to kind of sift through the resumes and ask some important questions on the interview. But, there are some great people out there. And if you put it out there, you'll find that, when you put it out to the universe, things just come your way in regards to that. Yeah.
They absolutely do.
Yeah, I mean, it all honestly starts with a Google search, I would say, a Google search, and also like a Facebook search, a LinkedIn search. So this actually goes both ways. So when I first hired somebody, I made a post in this women's, networking group on Facebook. And I got a ton of people and found great candidates. Also, if there are any coaches out there that you really like, and they're teaching a framework, you can go and follow them on Facebook. They typically have a group, and everybody in there who follows them is following their framework. Yes. So it's kind of like you get somebody who's been trained in something that you agree with. So that was something that I looked at too, but also just going through Facebook groups for entrepreneurs. And I would search every single day on Facebook groups and see what people were asking, and I would just answer questions. And suddenly I would get people in my DMs being like, hey, I saw your answer, whether they were the person who posted or not, and said, I would love to learn about your services. Like, I'm looking for somebody like you. So just kind of like showing up and asking questions and being curious and seeing what people are talking about and what people need help with. I think, if people see you out there really showcasing your expertise and really wanting to help, they're going to want to work with you, not just because of, because of what you're saying and, the advice you're giving is probably great advice, but also just because you seem like you're a cool person.
Yeah, it's so important. And I like what you're saying, because you're talking about really just engaging with other people, trying to offer your help, and just coming across authentic. You're not just going into places and forums and groups and just, posting links and, I guess just spamming, and saying, hey, here I am, here's what I do. Because, people don't really want that. People want help, like you said, and sometimes they go to these places to get help, and suddenly you pop up and you're answering a question for someone, and they're like, ooh, this Caitlin knows what she's talking about. Maybe I'll give her a buzz, or I'll chat to her, offline.
Yeah, I think putting in some sort of effort and just, genuinely wanting to help people, it goes a really long way these days.
It really does. It really does. I guess that's one of the fundamentals in business, which is, we got the technology, we have all these cool things that we can do these days, but, still having that care factor and being genuine and being authentic and all, will never go away. And I think if you look at the people that are really successful today, they still carry those traits, and if anyone listening to this is starting off or wanting to start off on an idea or on a project, or, take their side hobby and turn that into a business, perhaps, this is going to be one of the biggest things that you need to do, which is just have that genuine desire to solve a problem, make someone's life better, help in some way, like just be genuine, be yourself. And I think people will see all of those qualities and then they'll naturally gravitate towards you. Would you agree?
I love that. Yes.
I just made all that up. No, I didn't. No, it's true.
Great. I know.
Yeah, look, it definitely works. You can spot a person a mile away when they're trying to, pull a fast one on you, or they're just spinning a whole bunch of words. And you can tell when people are genuine. You can tell when someone's done a copy and paste, reply to something, or you can, and so I hear exactly what you're saying, because I'm in a lot of these groups, I'm in a lot of these forums, and I see you can see the good and the bad, right? And
yeah. And, with just so much noise out there too, there's definitely a lot more distrust in ads, anything salesy and pitchy. It's just, all about value marketing. I'm all about that these days.
Yeah, great. You're in such a cool space, because I just think the world is so crowded with, like you said, the noise. Everyone is like, there's a lot of noise out there. And sometimes you just need something really clear, clean, crisp to cut through. And that's what you help people with, right?
Yes, it is.
Now, you mentioned something in relation to what we were talking about, Caitlin, which is, people being on certain groups and forums and all of that to, try and associate with people that are, I guess, like-minded and trying to get answers to questions. How important is it for a person starting off in business, or just getting, they're in the early stages of entrepreneurship, that they start forming these groups or getting into groups where they can start bouncing ideas, sharing ideas, so they're not alone? Like, how important is something like that?
I mean, I think it's incredibly important. But, when you start an entrepreneurship, it can feel lonely. And, you want to make sure you have that support system for you, and just being able to bounce ideas off of other people, whether it's business or personal, people understanding just what you're going through without you having to explain it. And also, you can learn from people. You can learn so much and fast track your success just by being in these groups and seeing what other people are doing.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I must say, when I first got started in business, in the very beginning, it was just me, and I, like yourself, I'd never been in business. I'd never been an entrepreneur. I didn't know what it was like. I didn't have many friends that were in business. So, I didn't know who to bounce ideas with. I couldn't talk to my family, because none of my family members were business oriented. Right? And I couldn't talk to colleagues at work, because I was still working while I was doing my business on the side. It was a lonely place. I kind of felt like I was living a double life, like a James Bond. I had a job during the day and I was a secret agent at night.
I know, at night by yourself, stuck in a room. It's just, it's so inspiring to be with other people who are working hard to achieve their dream, to better the world. It's a really cool space to be in.
Yeah. And, whenever you read books or you hear stories of, people that are now really successful, they all started with a dream. They all started in, their basement, or they started in their garage, or they started in the bedroom, and, with an idea. And they, every big business started off as a small business.
Oh, yes. So true. Even Amazon. I always give that example when I work with people. I'm like, they just were this like random little college textbook. And now they're running the world, I feel like.
Exactly, right? And, you look at all of them. I mean, you look at, what Steve Jobs did. You look at what, Richard Branson, he didn't even finish school. He was told by teachers that he was, he is dyslexic, but he couldn't read. He'd never amount to anything. He was always distracted. He was daydreaming in class. But, he never gave up on his dreams, which is, I guess, the thing I always took out of a story like that, which is, people will tell you all sorts of things. You've got to believe in yourself and you've got to back yourself and never give up.
Yes, I love that. I mean, drive is probably more important than anything else that you have.
Yeah, exactly. And would you also say, having a vision and having some goals and things that you want to achieve, how important is that in being an entrepreneur or being a business owner?
It's definitely what is going to get you through the hard times when you do feel lonely, when you've had a bad month, because, your months aren't always going to be great, and they're not always going to be increasing. Sometimes you have these dips. And it's just always going back to, okay, well, why am I doing this? I might not have had the best month, but why am I doing this? Okay, this is going to keep me going. And now what's the lesson that I can learn?
Yeah. And, when we all came from the corporate world, we had a boss, we had, targets, we had KPIs, and we had, all these things that we had to achieve. So for people who are listening to this, you've grown up in this environment. You know what it's like to work within that structure. When we become entrepreneurs, suddenly that structure goes out the window, right? Because we don't have a boss. We don't have anyone to keep us accountable. We don't necessarily set good goals. And even if we did set goals, they sit in some book that's sitting in some drawer and we never look at it again. Right? So I guess where I was going with that is, how important is it to have some level of accountability in making sure that whatever it is you say you're going to do, you actually, you get it done?
I mean, I think that's probably the difference between the businesses that kind of stay stuck and the businesses that thrive. Right. They're always looking for the next goal. They're always looking to achieve the next accomplishment. And I think that's really important. And I think that's also kind of a theme for entrepreneurs, for successful entrepreneurs, is that they're always staying to quote Steve Jobs, hungry for more.
Yeah. Yes. And would you say you've got some good mentors or people that you work with, or coaches or just people?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think coaches are so necessary. It's coaches, peer masterminds, even those Facebook groups. If you're starting out, just find somebody who can keep you accountable, who can, keep the fire going, who can, understand what you're going through when there's a tough time. But, I think coaches for me and masterminds and groups have been pivotal in my career.
Yeah, no, 100%. I definitely would not be where I am today if it wasn't for the people that helped me or guided me or, kept me accountable or pulled me up when I was slack. And definitely we were talking about, hindsight is such a wonderful thing. The one thing I probably would do if I could have done it sooner is get a coach or get a mentor or get someone to have helped me, so I wouldn't have wasted as much time or tried to figure out all these things on my own, like trying to recreate the wheel when you don't need to.
Yeah. I mean, and for me, I just kind of, I think, had my ego. I was like, I don't need a coach. I'm good. And then, it was like 6 months of just, plateaus. And I was like, okay, need a coach. And then within that first month, my business exploded.
Right. And you gave that good example, Caitlin, where you're working all these crazy hours and you're working on Saturdays and you see the rest of your family out there trying to have a life and you're like, what am I doing? Like, what am I not doing right?
I want to have fun too.
Yeah. Well, this is the biggest thing. Sometimes I ask people, why do you want to get into business? Why do you want to start something on the side? If you're telling me you're already really busy, you have no time, this is going to wipe out your spare time for the next several months for sure. I mean, are you ready for that? Because, starting a business is like giving life to something and you got to nurture it. You got to grow it. You got to constantly be there for it and feed it. And the minute you take your eye off it, it starts going backwards.
Oh, yeah.
It'll die.
Yeah. It's your baby.
It's a baby. So, now you're running your own business. What's life like today compared to what it was? Like, do you think you have achieved some of the things you wanted to achieve with your life, your lifestyle?
Yes. I mean, all of the above. I'm, making more than my corporate salary because, I'm the main person. I have so much more, free time with, I just had a baby and I was able to take however much time off I wanted, and I'm still kind of working half days. And,
That's great.
yeah, I don't have to worry or be afraid of asking for time off to go on vacation, or, to be afraid to ask for sick time even, like I used to be so afraid of taking time off and doing these things that every normal person should be able to do, with ease and without being afraid. And just, if I want to take a half day, I can take a half day.
Well, that's the beauty.
Yeah. The freedom is amazing. Getting feedback from clients that, how you've changed their lives personally has been incredible.
Yeah, that's fantastic to hear. Well, I guess, one of the benefits of being in business is that you have that freedom to make those choices. Because when you work anywhere else, even though you may love your job and everything is going really well, you just don't have the freedoms to do all of, like if you wanted to take 3 months off, well, it's not that easy, right? And if you wanted to go from working, the usual 8 to 10 hours or even sometimes 12 hours a day to saying, you know what, I'm only going to work half days on Friday. And well, you got to ask someone if that's okay. and
exactly.
It's not going to be okay. So, being your own boss or being in your own business gives you that freedom. It gives you that opportunity to set your own agenda, to have your own lifestyle. And I guess that to me is the end goal. Like the business is the vehicle and you're doing something you love, but it's to give you that quality of life. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. Experiencing the life that you want to live, whatever that looks like. I mean, I feel like for me too, that is ultimate freedom.
Yeah. Yeah. And, like you said, isn't it great when you hear from some of your clients that, you've helped make a difference to them or to their business or to their lives because of what you do, because of what you love doing.
Yeah, it brings you back to your why and then lights you up all over again.
Yeah. And now you just mentioned something there, your why, which we haven't talked a lot about, but I guess it's, the big reason for you wanting to do something in the first place. How important is it, Caitlin, that our listeners spend some time, like take time out, whether they meditate or just go into a quiet space, go for a walk, whatever it might be, to figure out what is their why? Like, how important is that? Like, can you help us with that?
I think it's everything. I think it is literally, the gasoline to your vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to keep you moving.
Yeah, because I know that if it's easy to start a business, right? It's not, once you have an idea, you can get it running quickly. But if you haven't got that drive behind you, one thing I can share just from personal experience, as well as just working with a lot of people who are in this space, as quickly as a business starts, it stops,
Yeah.
And I remember one of my mentors telling me, the only thing that's going to stop your business is you.
Oh, so true. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of people might say, well, oh, look, it's the environment, it's the economy, it's this, I'm not finding the right clients, no one's spending any money, this and that, and there's too much competition. And guess what? That applies to everyone who's in business.
I know.
Like, it's kind of like saying, I've got kids who, I constantly need to feed, or it's like, I've got a backyard that I constantly need to take care of and mow and clean. And well, so does everyone else.
Yep. You got to make time, and you sometimes have to get creative.
Yeah. So tell me, with your business now that you've got set up, it's giving you this lifestyle, which is great. Tell us what an average day in your business looks like. How do you spend your time, and tell us some fun things about what you do.
Yes. Okay. So, well, I have a newborn, so life is like a little crazy now. But I'm with him the first part of the day, which has been, amazing. I took 7 weeks off. So that was incredible for me. And then now, obviously doing part-time for a while. But just knowing that I can be there for him. And then also I pick up my son at 3, that was like kind of my ultimate goal, was like, I want to make sure that I have a morning routine. So I wake up, meditate, do whatever I need to do, drink coffee in silence, not check emails. So, I have my little morning rituals. I hang out with the little babe, in the morning, and I get my work done for a few hours and then make sure I can pick up my son from school. For some reason, I don't know why, that was just kind of like the one thing that I really wanted to do.
Yeah, no, that's really cool.
Yeah, so he actually started going full time this year. He's like in TK, which is a new thing. It's like right before kindergarten.
Right.
So yeah, I pick him up at 3 every day, which has been really fun, and get some time with him for a little bit before, getting back to work. But that's really it, is, the meditation, the journaling, always make sure I have my workout that I get in, quality time with my family, and then, working on what I want to work on. Most days right now, I work on a lot of content creation, which I personally really love to do, is just, write and go on video and networking. So, meeting people like you, like those are my top 2 things that I love to do. So that's really, for my business now, is what I've been focusing on.
That's so cool. So what I'm hearing is like you have this amazing, you've created this environment now where, you can work and you can play and you can do all these things around your family, and you still accomplish a lot, but there's an element of discipline to it. So you're journaling, you're meditating, you've set time aside to spend with your family, because that was always your big driver, right? And
Yep. And then at one point, I was so caught up on, getting this thing launched, is that I would work straight through until bedtime. And now it's like I have a cutoff, and I cook my meal or whatever I want to do, or we'll go out, or I'll just hang out with my husband before bed.
Yeah.
So making sure, that's all in place. And, I'm really happy with where we're at right now and what I'm able to do work-wise and, on the personal side of things.
Which is really great, and I like the fact that you mentioned you even the little things like going and picking up and dropping your kid off at school, right? So how many moms out there, or even dads, would love to be able to do that, but they can't, because they have to be at work, or, they have to rush home during traffic and all of that. And that's just a normal part of society. But, again, if you're thinking of those reasons, why should I do something? Why should I get into business? Why should I try this entrepreneur thing? There's some of the reasons why, and it doesn't have to be always, I want to make like millions of dollars. It's, I just want to do things for my family, or be there where, I haven't been able to before. And sometimes those little things can become the big, big drivers we need. Would you agree, Kate?
Oh yeah. Yes. 100%.
Yeah. So, I love this whole topic, by the way, and I talk to a lot of people about this every day. And so I could talk about this with you all day. But what I want to do now at this point in the podcast is get to more of a lighthearted kind of a section. We call it rapid response, and it's just a little bit of fun.
Okay.
Where I'm just going to ask you a few questions. Not that I haven't been already, but I just want to see how you respond, and the first thing that comes to your mind. How does that sound?
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Cool.
Yes.
Awesome. So, what is your favorite mode of learning? Like, how do you like to learn stuff?
Podcasts. I am obsessed with podcasts.
Are you? Okay, cool.
Yes.
Awesome. Do you have a favorite role model or hero, or someone that you look up to that's been influential? It can be more than one person.
Yes, I have a few. So honestly, one of my biggest heroes is my son, my 4-year-old son, seeing everything that he went through, and just, just having such a positive attitude. I think he's probably like my number one hero. It's like so funny. I never thought I'd ever say that, but just his outlook on life and the funny things that he says, and just, reminding me of what it's like to live life and have fun at life.
That's awesome. That's actually really cool. Yeah, kids are our biggest inspiration sometimes. Now, we talked a little bit about a couple of quotes earlier in the podcast. What is a famous line or quote, or something that you either come across quite often, or maybe you've written yourself, or you've read, that you would like to share with our audience?
Okay, so I've had this for a long time, and I think I discovered it in college, and it was a lyric to a song. I think it's One Red Thread by Blind Pilot, and it's, I had the itch to fly, so I flew. And that just always resonated with me. And even going through this entrepreneurial journey and me taking that leap, like it just, for some reason, I've always written it down. It's always on some sort of notepad. It's up for me to look at, but I love that quote so much. Just like, you know, if you have the itch, like it's meant for you. Like you're meant to fly with it.
I love it. I love it. I've actually never heard that one before, but it's so simple and it's just so perfect for what we're talking about.
I know.
Yeah. 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 Just like Nike, right? Just do it.
Yeah, I know.
Cool. Okay. So next question is there a cause or a charity or some sort of a, thing that you're passionate about that you would like to call out, maybe let our members know about that either you're involved in or you just want to sort of give a bit of a shout out?
Yeah. So I'm part of Phoenix Children's Hospital. So that's where my son had his heart surgery. Mm-hmm. And our company, we donate proceeds there. I'm part of the 40 under 40 board. So we do a lot of charities for them. And that just holds a special place in my heart because the doctors there and the nurses there who are tending to these little kids and these babies are just honestly angels on earth. With my latest son, he was born 10 weeks early. So he was in the NICU, and that's kind of, that adds a whole other level and layer to, why I want to help Phoenix Children's and, these amazing humans who every day show up and just save babies' lives. Yeah. For me, I love it. And I want to be able to support that. And I want to be able to support the families that, might not have the insurance or great insurance, and they have to go there, but they're covered in bills, we're very thankful that we had great insurance through all of this, and not a lot of people have that. Yes. And so to be able to help them on the flip side.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. Well, good luck with all of that awesome work that you're doing there too.
Thank you so much.
Now, is there something quirky or something, that a little bit, how should I say? If you're not embarrassed to share with our audience that maybe they don't know, when they look up your LinkedIn profile and all these things, they see the professional Caitlin. But is there something that you'd like to share that maybe people don't know too much about?
Yeah, I mean, I love a good 80s dance party. Yes. An 80s dance party. I think that brings me back to my college days. Mm-hmm. What else about me? I make musical playlists for everything. I love music. So, cool. Summertime, I make, a playlist for summertime. Or if there's a really fun, girls trip we're going on, I'll do that. Right. And that's when I look back and I hear songs, I think that's what people say the most about me is that I'm this person oh, that song reminds me of this one time that I was riding my bike. My husband makes fun of me for it, but it's just that's kind of a little quirk that I love to do. And it kind of just brings back the memories.
That's awesome. No, thanks for sharing that. Life is all about memories, isn't it? One day we're going to look back and it's just going to be all the things we remember that we did.
Yes. Yes. I love that.
In saying that, I think one of my mentors also said that, we always look back and remember things like their memories, right? Mm-hmm. But you flip that around, and for anyone listening to this, the future is just future memories that you haven't created yet. So, if you think about the future as in what do you want your future to look like, how about you think of what kind of memories would you like to create for yourself? And think of it that way. So, what are things you might need to do to create those memories for yourself so that they become those memories? So, people talk about vision boards and mm-hmm. putting things up on the fridge and all of that stuff. Do you do stuff like that? Do you try and visualize, what your life look like?
That really resonates with me. I do vision boards, probably once or twice a year. Mm-hmm. And also for me too, it's, one of my whys is being able to take my sons with me and experience the world, experience different cultures.
Yes.
And that's something that really, really excites me. So I'm always on Pinterest planning my next big luxurious vacation. We were supposed to go to Bali over spring break, and we're going to take our 4-year-old with us, which would have been crazy but amazing fun. But with COVID, that got shut down. So back to square one, going and creating itineraries for myself.
Yeah, which is so cool. Yeah,
so that's huge. It's all about the experience and just seeing the world. And that's something that really excites me.
Yeah, well, the next time you plan a trip to Bali or something, I've been to Bali. It's an amazing place. You'll need to go a little bit further south of the equator and then visit Australia.
Yeah, I know. That is definitely on the list for sure. I've not been to Australia yet, but that's something that I cannot wait to visit.
There you go. There you go. Now, as we wrap up, Caitlin, where do you see this journey of yours taking you? Like, have you got plans for the business? Are you on track? Is everything perfect, or have you still got things that you want to get done?
Definitely still have things I want to get done. I'm the type of person that I have shiny object syndrome, and I have so many ideas that I want to do, and I can't just always can't do all of them all at once. So I'm just kind of away at everything and anything that excites me. And every year taking a look back and seeing, okay, like where am I now? What do I want to do? And that used to look like strictly financials. And now what I found over the past, 2 years, it's been really rewarding for me is instead of like the financials, what do I want to do? So for me this year, it's creating content and networking with people and setting goals that way of like, okay, I want to meet 3 new people this week. Right. And that way. And that's actually been very successful for us and really rewarding. And again, just going back to the freedom of how I want to gauge my business and how I want to run my business.
Yeah. I think you said something really, really important over there, which is, the goals don't always have to be financial, because that's what a lot of people think about. And that's why they get into business sometimes. But once you can get past that, actually, it's the more meaningful stuff. How many people do I want to meet this week or talk to or connect with, or, how many lives do I want to change, or all of that sort of stuff. So, yeah. So if people wanted to reach out to you, Caitlin, or your business, like what is the best way for them to either connect with you or, just get in touch with you?
Yeah, well, please reach out. I, of course, love meeting people, like I've said, and networking, but I am on Instagram at Caitlin Strempel on LinkedIn, and our business is risingranksdigital.com. It's our website.
That's it? risingranksdigital.com. Easy.
Yeah.
Easy. So I'll definitely put that link, in our notes with the podcast when it all goes live. But I just wanted to once again say thank you for, taking the time to be with us and to share your story, your journey, your life, and how you got to this point. Everyone's journey, everyone's story is unique. And that's why I love doing this, because, I love connecting with people, and I've learned a few things just by talking to you today. I'm sure our listeners have as well.
Good. Well, thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
Yeah, it was heaps of fun. Is there any last minute things you'd like to leave our audience with? Any thoughts, any tips just before we close off?
I think just bringing it back to the fact that I mentioned earlier is like, if you have that burning desire for something, or even like that little itch that you're meant for more, that's there for a reason. I would look into that, and I would go after it and really, really think hard about, your fears and which fears are, I don't want to say fake, but which fears are really you're making up in your mind and which fears are real, and combating and going after your goals with that mindset intact.
Awesome. Good words to end with. So, Caitlin, thank you once again for being our guest. Good luck with everything that you're doing, and even with the hospital, the foundation that you're supporting over there, and the kids, and just everything that you're doing is really, really cool. Let's keep in touch, and thanks again.
Thank you.
If you like this podcast and would like to understand a little bit more about what was just discussed, then you're in luck. Simply head over to breakfreefromcorporate.com, and we have a fantastic bonus gift waiting for you to download. All we ask in return is that you leave us a review on iTunes and or Stitcher, whichever you use. And lastly, help us share this podcast around with your friends, your colleagues, through Facebook, Twitter, Google+, or LinkedIn. We truly appreciate all your support, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to this podcast episode of Break Free from Corporate. Once again, to access previous and all future episodes, visit breakfreefromcorporate.com and subscribe today.